Most people believe silence is power. They believe that if they stop texting, stop calling, disappear from view, they automatically gain control of the situation. But here is the truth most don't understand: silence is common. Emotional detachment is rare. Anyone can stay quiet while still being emotionally loud inside. Anyone can avoid contact while still replaying memories, checking status updates, stalking stories, and waiting for a sign. That kind of silence doesn't create strength. It creates tension inside you and confusion outside you. You are physically absent, but emotionally available, and people can feel that energy even if you never send another message. Real impact begins when your emotions stop reacting, not when your phone stops responding, because silence with emotional attachment is just delayed pain. You're not free, you're paused, you're not strong, you're restraining yourself, and restraint is not transformation. When you are still emotionally hooked, your silence becomes a strategy of hope, not a position of power. You're quiet because you want a reaction. You're distant because you want to be missed. You're gone because you want to be called back. That is not detachment, that is silent negotiation. Emotional detachment is different. It is internal. It is invisible. It is when your mood no longer depends on their behavior. It is when your day is not affected by whether they reach out or not. It is when you stop measuring your worth through their attention. That shift changes your tone, your posture, your decisions, your patience. You stop overthinking every detail. You stop needing closure conversations. You stop building imaginary scenarios. Your nervous system becomes calm, and calm is powerful. People expect noise when there is distance. They expect hidden anger, hidden sadness, hidden longing. What they don't expect is emotional neutrality. When you become emotionally steady, you become unpredictable, and unpredictability creates psychological weight. Because now they cannot read you, they cannot trigger you, they cannot pull emotional strings. Their old influence stops working. Think about it: arguments still show care, emotional reactions still show attachment, even hurt shows investment. But emotional steadiness shows something else entirely. It shows that your center has moved. And when your center moves away from someone, they feel it more deeply than if you simply stopped talking. Detachment also changes your behavior patterns. You stop explaining yourself too much. You stop defending every misunderstanding. You stop trying to prove your value. You no longer rush to respond. You no longer chase clarity from someone who enjoys confusion. That behavioral shift sends a stronger message than silence ever could. It says you are no longer emotionally dependent on the outcome. And here is the paradox: when you truly detach emotionally, you don't even care whether it hurts them or not. Because your focus is no longer on impact, it is on inner stability. You are not trying to win them back or prove a point. You are building emotional independence. That independence is felt. It shows in your voice, your timing, your decisions, your boundaries. Silence is external. Detachment is internal. One is a tactic, the other is transformation, and transformation always hits deeper than tactics. Don't just be quiet, become emotionally unavailable to what once controlled you. That is where real power begins. Many people think disappearing is enough. They believe if they stop showing up, stop posting, stop replying, stop being visible, the other person will suddenly feel the loss and come running back. But what they are really doing is performing absence. It becomes a silent show. Look, I'm gone. Notice me being gone. And when your absence is a performance, your mind is still tied to the audience. You are still acting for their reaction. That is not freedom. That is emotional dependency wearing a mask. When you perform absence, your focus is still behind you, not ahead of you. You measure your progress by whether they noticed. You measure your strength by whether they reached out. You measure your silence by how loud their response is. That keeps you trapped in the same emotional circle, just with less communication. Your body is moving away, but your attention is still chasing validation, and attention is where your real energy lies. Instead of performing absence, build presence somewhere else, real presence, tangible presence, measurable presence. Put your energy into your routine, your discipline, your work, your physical strength, your skills, your purpose. When your calendar becomes full, your mind becomes quieter. When your days are structured, your emotions become more stable. Growth is not just a distraction, it is a replacement. You are not trying to forget someone, you are becoming someone new. Shift from how do I make them feel my absence to how do I make my life feel meaningful. That one shift changes everything. Because now your actions are not driven by emotional reaction, they are driven by personal direction. You wake up with tasks, not thoughts. You move with intention, not impulse. You build habits that support your future instead of fantasies that replay your past. Visible self-growth has a different psychological effect than silent disappearance. When you level up your body, your communication, your confidence, your social circle, your work ethic, the contrast becomes undeniable. You are no longer the same person they emotionally categorized, and when someone realizes they can no longer place you in your old role, it creates cognitive shock. People are more affected by transformation than by withdrawal. This is not about showing off or proving something. It is about becoming grounded in motion, join environments that stretch you, learn things that challenge you. Put yourself in rooms where your comfort is tested. Build friendships that energize you. Start projects that demand consistency. When your identity expands, emotional attachment naturally shrinks. You don't force yourself to stop caring, you outgrow the space where that attachment lived. Also understand this, when you build presence elsewhere, your emotional tone changes. You speak differently. You carry yourself differently. Your patience increases, your desperation disappears. You are no longer waiting to be chosen. You are choosing your direction. That internal shift is felt even without direct contact. Energy travels through behavior, and behavior reflects priorities. Most people try to look unavailable. Few people become engaged in a bigger life. There is a difference. One is an image, the other is a reality, and reality always has more weight than image. When your life becomes fuller without them, when your schedule becomes tighter, when your goals become clearer, when your standards become higher, your absence stops being a message and starts being a consequence. Don't disappear to be noticed. Expand so much that being noticed no longer matters. That is the move that changes the game. Most people think ignoring someone is the ultimate move. Don't reply. Don't react. Don't acknowledge. Just shut the door and walk away. But ignoring still carries emotion inside it. Ignoring is usually loaded with frustration, disappointment, or hidden hope. It is loud on the inside even if it looks quiet on the outside. And because it is emotional, it still shows investment. The truth is, ignoring sends a message, but indifference sends a conclusion. When you ignore someone, you are often still watching them. You still feel the pull. You still get triggered when their name appears. You still rehearse what you would say if they reached out. Your nervous system is still connected to the situation. You are withholding response, but you are not free, and people can often sense that tension. Ignoring feels like resistance. Indifference feels like release. Indifference is different because it is emotionally flat. No anger. No bitterness. No hidden signals. Just neutrality. You are not trying to prove a point. You are not trying to teach a lesson. You are not trying to create regret. You are simply no longer emotionally invested in the outcome. That emotional neutrality removes the drama, and when drama disappears, the psychological impact actually increases. Why? Because emotional reactions create feedback loops. If you get angry, they feel powerful. If you get hurt, they feel important. If you argue, they feel connected. Even negative emotion confirms relevance. It says, "You still affect me." Indifference removes that confirmation. It quietly communicates, "You no longer have emotional access here," and that lands deeper than anger ever will. Indifference shows in small behaviors. Your tone becomes calm and brief. Your responses, if necessary, are clean and neutral. No emotional hooks, no loaded words, no passive aggression. You don't rush to defend your image. You don't try to correct every misunderstanding. You don't chase the last word. You are not cold. You are simply no longer emotionally available for unnecessary conflict. There is also a powerful psychological shift that happens inside you when you reach indifference. Your mental energy returns to you. You stop replaying conversations. You stop analyzing their behavior. You stop trying to decode mixed signals. Your attention, your most valuable resource, is no longer being drained by interpretation and anticipation. That reclaimed focus strengthens your confidence and stabilizes your mood. Indifference is not pretending not to care. It is when caring is no longer automatic. It is when your self-respect becomes stronger than your emotional habit. You are not forcing distance, you are feeling less pull. And when the pull weakens, your behavior becomes naturally composed. No performance required. People are prepared for anger. They are prepared for silence. They are prepared for emotional reactions. What they are not prepared for is emotional neutrality, because neutrality gives them nothing to work with. No doorway back in, no emotional leverage, no predictable trigger. It removes their ability to influence your state. And when influence disappears, significance feels threatened. Understand this clearly. Indifference is not cruelty. It is emotional boundary. It is what happens when you stop negotiating with your own peace. You are not trying to hurt them. You are choosing not to hurt yourself anymore. That distinction matters because revenge is emotional. Detachment is structural. Ignoring says, "I'm upset." Indifference says, "I'm done," and done is always heavier than upset. Choose emotional neutrality over emotional resistance. That is where your real strength becomes visible. Most people think cutting communication is enough. They block the number, mute the chat, unfollow the account, and believe they have removed access. But communication access and emotional access are not the same thing. Someone can lose the ability to message you and still have deep access to your inner world. They still know your fears, your habits, your weak spots, your dreams, your triggers. They still know how you think and how you feel. And as long as that emotional doorway stays open, the connection is not truly broken. Blocking messages is technical. Blocking emotional access is psychological. It means you stop feeding them insight into your inner state. You stop giving updates about your struggles, your loneliness, your wins, your plans, your confusion. You stop letting your emotional life be visible to someone who no longer has a role in protecting it. This is not about secrecy, it is about boundaries. Too many people keep emotional access open through indirect channels. They talk through mutual friends. They drop emotional hints on social media. They post things meant to be interpreted. They share pain publicly hoping it reaches one specific person. That is not detachment, that is emotional broadcasting. And broadcasting keeps the bond alive. Emotional access is maintained through information and vulnerability. When someone knows how you are feeling day by day, they remain psychologically close to you even without direct contact. They can still predict your reactions. They can still feel your emotional availability. That weakens your position and slows your healing. Strength grows when your inner world becomes private again, not hidden in fear, protected with intention. You become more selective about who hears your story. You share your struggles with people who are present and supportive, not with those who walked away or created confusion. You stop turning your emotional state into public content. You stop explaining your pain to people who are no longer responsible for it. There is also power in emotional mystery. When someone no longer knows how you feel, what you think about them, whether you are hurting or thriving, their certainty disappears. And certainty is comfort. Remove certainty, and the psychological distance increases. They can no longer emotionally place you, and that creates weight. This also changes how you speak when interaction is unavoidable. You keep it grounded, respectful, and brief. No emotional overflow, no reopening old wounds in conversation, no late-night vulnerability talks, no nostalgic storytelling. You are not rude, you are contained. Emotional containment signals maturity and self-respect. Another important shift happens inside you when you remove emotional access. You stop seeking emotional validation from the same source that caused emotional instability. That breaks the dependency loop. You are no longer going back to the fire for warmth after it burned you. You build emotional support structures elsewhere: routines, mentors, friends, purpose-driven work, self-discipline. Your stability stops depending on a single person's attention. Understand this clearly: emotional access is a privilege, not a right. It should be granted based on consistency, respect, and presence, not history and memory. Just because someone once knew you deeply does not mean they are entitled to know you now. People who are no longer aligned with your well-being should not have backstage access to your emotions. When emotional access is removed, the connection loses its fuel. Without emotional data, emotional leverage disappears. And without leverage, influence fades. Don't just close the chat, close the emotional door with clarity and self-respect. That is when separation becomes real. People become comfortable when they can read you. When they know how long you take to reply, how you react under pressure, how you behave when you're hurt, how you sound when you miss them. Predictability gives others a sense of control. They may not even realize it, but once they understand your emotional patterns, they begin to rely on them. They know which buttons trigger you, which words pull you closer, which silences make you chase. That predictability weakens your position and strengthens their influence. When you decide to step back, most people only change one thing: communication. They stop replying, but everything else stays the same. Same schedule, same habits, same emotional rhythm, same availability through different doors. That is not a pattern break, that is a partial pause. Real psychological distance is created when the entire pattern changes, not just one behavior. Becoming unreadable is not about playing games. It is about evolving your structure so your old emotional map no longer works. You change your daily routine. You change when you are active, where you invest your time, how you respond to stress, how accessible you are socially. You build new priorities that reorganize your day. When your structure changes, your reactions change. When your reactions change, your predictability disappears. Unavailability is also misunderstood. Many think it means ignoring everyone and isolating themselves. That's not strength, that's withdrawal. True unavailability means your time and energy are now allocated with intention. You are busy with growth, discipline, health, learning, work, and meaningful connections. You are not hiding, you are engaged elsewhere. You are not hard to reach because you are hurt. You are hard to reach because you are focused. Patterns are emotional shortcuts. When someone knows your pattern, they don't need to understand you, they just anticipate you. Break the shortcut. If you always reacted instantly, become measured. If you always explained yourself emotionally, become concise. If you always chased clarity, become comfortable with silence. If you always made exceptions, start keeping standards. Each broken pattern removes an old lever of control. There is a strong psychological effect when someone realizes their usual methods no longer work on you. The joke that used to melt your resistance no longer moves you. The delayed reply that used to make you anxious no longer affects your mood. The emotional bait that once pulled you into long conversations now receives a calm, minimal response, or none at all. That moment creates cognitive disruption. They lose their script, and when the script is gone, certainty is gone. Becoming unreadable also protects your emotional energy. When you are predictable, you live in reaction mode. When you are unreadable, you live in decision mode. You choose responses instead of being pulled into them. You pause before engaging. You observe before reacting. That pause is power. It creates emotional control and behavioral precision. This does not mean becoming cold or robotic. It means becoming grounded. Your emotions are still there, but they are no longer externally controlled. You are not easily provoked, easily flattered, easily pulled back into old cycles. Your center is stable, so your behavior becomes steady instead of reactive. And here is the deeper truth: when your patterns change for real, not as a tactic but as growth, you don't feel like you are acting different. You feel like you are living aligned. The old version of you was accessible through habit. The new version of you is accessible through standards. Change the pattern completely, and you change the power dynamic completely. Most people treat distance like a defensive move. They step back, they go quiet, they try to protect their feelings, and they focus on not getting hurt again. It becomes a shield strategy: reduce contact, reduce exposure, reduce risk. But defense alone never creates transformation. Defense keeps you safe, but direction makes you stronger. There is a massive difference between pulling away from someone and moving forward in your life. One is retreat, the other is advancement. When your entire focus is reaction, your life becomes tied to the event. You measure your progress by how little you feel, how little you check, how little you respond. You are still emotionally orbiting the same situation, just at a slightly greater distance. That is not freedom, that is controlled attachment. Your emotional energy is still pointed backward. Direction changes the vector of your energy. Instead of asking, "How do I avoid pain?" you start asking, "Where am I going next?" That question is powerful because it forces forward motion. It demands goals, plans, standards, and structure. Now your attention is not on the person, it is on the path. And attention determines emotional recovery speed more than time does. Moving with direction means you start building aggressively, not emotionally, but structurally. You upgrade your skills, you commit to physical discipline, you sharpen your communication, you pursue work opportunities. You create financial targets, you expand your social and professional circles, you set measurable goals and track them. This creates momentum, and momentum is one of the strongest emotional healers that exists. Reaction is emotionally loud but strategically weak. Direction is emotionally calm but strategically powerful. Reaction says, "I won't let this hurt me again." Direction says, "I'm becoming someone who operates at a higher level." One is about the past event. The other is about the future identity. There is also a deep psychological shift when you move from avoidance to advancement. You stop seeing yourself as someone recovering from loss and start seeing yourself as someone building capacity. That identity shift changes your posture, your voice, your decisions, your standards. You no longer talk like someone who is wounded, you talk like someone who is focused. People can sense when you are in reaction mode. Your conversations circle the same topic. Your emotions spike and drop quickly. Your motivation is inconsistent. But when you are in direction mode, your behavior stabilizes. Your schedule becomes tighter. Your excuses decrease. Your follow-through increases. You become more reliable to yourself first. Direction also removes the hidden hope loop. When you are only pulling away, a part of you is often secretly waiting to be pulled back. When you are moving forward with intensity, you are not emotionally available for reversal. Your growth creates friction with your past. Your new standards conflict with your old tolerances. You don't have to force yourself not to go back. You no longer fit back. This is where real power shows up, not in silence, not in ignoring, not in disappearing, but in advancement. When your energy is invested in becoming sharper, stronger, more capable, more disciplined, your emotional dependency naturally weakens. You are too engaged in building to be consumed by reacting. Don't just step back from what hurt you, step forward into who you are becoming. That is the move that changes everything.